Welcome everyone to our 27th episode. 27 is my favorite number, so it's going to be a good one. This is a space where I want to empower you all to be relationship experts. I'm Kimia Shasady, the founder of Love Story. I have a master's in clinical behavioral psychology, specializing in relationships. I've published papers that you can find on Google Scholar on relationships. I've been happily married for close to 5 years now. I've helped over 100 people with their relationships, and I've got my husband and brother on this call today, so that's really exciting. Welcome to you both. Thanks for coming. And at any point at all, if you feel like you want to ask something, share a story, make a comment, share your perspective, it is so welcomed, because that's how we have the best conversations and learn from each other. And it's also way better for learning to hear someone else speak and hear people's perspectives and learn together. So feel free to request to speak, and I'll do my best to keep an eye so I can see that request and approve it. Okay, so today's topic, Relationship Skills 101. The reason I picked this topic is because I've been helping a lot of people with relationship stuff lately, and I'm just seeing very, very basic things that are not happening. And I know we don't get taught this stuff in school, so I don't blame people for not knowing, but there's just some good things that is good to know that I'm going to try and go through. And hopefully, if you've been to a couple of these spaces or you've been to all of them, you can start picking them up with me. And then hopefully you can also realize these are not the best things to do. So I've got 5 rules of thumb in here. And again, take them with a grain of salt. These are general rules. So let's jump in. And if anything because some of these things might initially feel like, oh, what? And if you're feeling like that, it's really good to talk about it, because then we can kind of unpack it together and we can realize like maybe where the important stuff to keep note is. Okay, so the first rule of thumb is respond within 24 hours. So if you're interested in someone for real, and you really want to see where this goes, please respond within 24 hours. I know people that didn't respond in a week. I don't know, they heard something they didn't like and they were really serious about this person and they wanted a future with this person, and they just stopped responding in a week. Or someone else in the last week as well, I heard, they just stopped talking to their partner for 4 days. And I don't know what games people are playing, but we don't play games. Like when we're talking about relationships here, we're just being very upfront, we're being very honest, and we're making time for someone that we think is that special to be in our life and be the love of our life, if that's what you're looking for and that's where you're at. So yeah, and if you expect a response within 24 hours and you don't get one, it's okay to expect a response within 24 hours. But this whole waiting game of waiting for someone else to message, and you don't want to be the first person to message, or you don't want to double message or anything like that, don't hold back. We're not playing games. So please remember the rule of thumb to respond within 24 hours. Before I go into a little more detail with this one, does anyone have any initial kind of reaction to this rule of thumb that they want to share or bring up? Okay, I see my husband walking towards me. Okay, what have you got to say?
I just want to ask, are all responses created equal? Like what is an appropriate what is, I don't want to say the minimum response, but if I was a person who, maybe one of your clients who you said, doesn't do this naturally, like what is the minimum, or what should I be striving towards, I guess,
Okay, so all responses aren't the same. What should you be striving for? So I guess, and tell me if I understand your question correctly, if I'm not answering well. Like if someone tells me, oh, we haven't talked for a day or something, I don't know, it's been 2 days, it's been 3 days, I start getting worried. Like if you're at that place where you're, I don't know, both considering relationship, like being in a relationship and you've talked about it and taking it seriously, like even in a check-in, even like, hey, this is what I'm up to today, or hey, I'm busy, would love to chat more another day, or just, I don't know, I feel like obviously there's better responses, but something really seems to be better than nothing. And I want to just also highlight that there are exceptional circumstances. Like if you're going on holiday, if you're a veteran, like, there's so many exceptions that can exist. And, you can talk about that before and discuss it with your partner and be like, hey, like, I have these things coming up, or I have this thing coming up. Like I probably can't respond to you for 3 days or something. How do you feel about that? Or do you need me to like find a way to contact you, or like, I don't know, what do you need? Just have that conversation. So it's okay that if sometimes you don't talk at all in an exceptional circumstance, but as long as you've had the discussion prior, not just nobody knows what's going on. Someone's like, oh, I'm just, just checking your phone all the time to see if they are going to message you like today or another day, or are they ever going to respond like that? I don't want people to be in that space. It's not a very healthy space to be in. I don't know if that answers your question.
Not really, but like
Okay.
I guess you said it's better to say something than to not say something at all. But okay, I mean, I guess you probably also don't want to feel like you're always the person reaching out. That probably doesn't feel too good. Um, how do you avoid that?
Yeah. So if
When do I choose to get out of that relationship, or you know, how long do I stay in there? Or what if I'm a person who doesn't like initiating stuff? What do I do?
Yes, people are so sensitive about initiating these days. So it's really like if you're starting to feel like you're initiating a lot, don't hold back. Have the conversation and be like, I feel like I'm initiating all the time. I don't really like this feeling. I think it's important for us to communicate to each other, within 24 hours, and just kind of see what dynamics are at play for the other person. So it's possible that your partner, maybe is quite traditional in the sense that, wants the guy to initiate. And so they don't want to be a nag, for example. So they think the guy will set the pace of the relationship. And for other people, that might not be the case. And they're like, oh, they don't like me if they're not messaging me or they're not initiating. And so there's so many things at play here. And if we let them kind of just play out without any intervention, we can really easily miscommunicate or think the other person doesn't care or just get really upset. Like really high emotions can come out of really nothing. And this stuff is like playing games. So if you're feeling uncomfortable about something, address it and say like, hey, I feel like I'm initiating. I just want to like check in with what's going on. I want to be able to establish, like, as soon as you kind of find someone you like and they like you back and the attraction's there and stuff, and you like, we'll go through all these. I'm jumping the gun here, but you want to have the conversation of how often do you prefer to stay in touch, or how often do you, like, with text, with phone, with video call, with in person. Like, you want to be able to have that conversation as soon as possible and kind of put in a, like, just explicitly say like, I have an expectation that we'll respond to each other within 24 hours. We won't go 24 hours longer not communicating, at least via text, unless we've had a conversation about it before where there's some exceptional thing. That's a healthy kind of form of what communication in a relationship is, when both people are committed and respectful to each other. So yeah, hopefully that helps a bit of paint the picture a little bit more. Another thing, I don't know if you wanted to come back and say anything else.
Yeah, last thing here. What if like we've talked about it, maybe I brought it up a time or two, but man, it just keeps happening, and I feel like I'm just nagging them. Then what? Like I don't want to feel like a nag. I'm not a nag.
You're the one initiating the conversation.
Yeah, I feel like I'm initiating the conversation. Be like, hey, we're supposed to respond in like a day, and it's been like 3 days.
So you message them and then they've not messaged back, or for 3 days?
Yeah.
For 3 days. So it was like okay.
Or like the conversation like reached a natural end, and like I feel like I'm always the one who starts it, and like they don't start it.
Yeah. So this stuff falls into normal conflict resolution for me. Like, you can be upset about anyone's behavior, about anything. And if you're asking someone to show behavior change that's outside of their natural realm of what they normally do, it's tough to get anyone to change. And as someone who's done psychology, like, we can't make anyone change unless they want to change. Because we don't have any like secret formula. Like, we know some stuff, but unless someone wants to change, we can't make them. So if, then we would kind of like hone in on, whatever the communication problem was, or whatever behavior change you're looking for, and just make sure you communicate it very clearly. Have them be able to tell you what it is that you expect from them, and have ways to, like, just track it. And if they're not pulling their weight with this thing that you've both agreed on, so you've come to an agreement with what is going to be changed or to what level, then you track it. And it's, if you've both agreed on doing something, it's not okay for someone to not hold up their end of the deal. But maybe after talking to them, you realize where they're coming from, and you're like, okay, well, maybe you just thought not to respond because there was no question mark or something. But I think there should be a general rule that we establish, that we stay in touch with each other no matter what within 24 hours. So that means, you message me, I message you, whatever it is that you want to set up for it to be the way you want it, and, a way that the other person is also on board with. So I think that falls under more conflict resolution, because you're wanting behavior change in someone. But in general, I want all of you in this room right now to have alarm bells going off. If you're really like with someone who's taking you, in a serious relationship where someone's taking you seriously, and you're seriously thinking of commitment with them, like 24 hours is the realm we want to be in. Like we got to fix it if it's outside of 24 hours in general. So keep that 24-hour mark in mind. Another thing is, when you get into a relationship, you find someone attractive, that's great, you both do. Now you're kind of in the dating phase. Another thing is, like I said earlier, quickly establish how often you want to stay in touch, because it's so easy for even passive aggression to come in. Just another person I was talking to this week, they went on their first date. This person went to the gym at like 11 p.m. because they had insomnia, and going to the gym actually helps them go to bed. And so the person was being on top of it, messaged the person that they went on a first date on, was like, I'm not going to be very responsive tonight, I'm going to the gym, like it'll help me sleep. And then the other person reacted quite harshly and said, okay, I see where your priorities are, like that, like just in text form. And that's really passive aggressive, and that's not okay. Like, we should not let people get away with treating us like that. It's okay if she's upset that he's not messaging her, but she needs to talk about it directly. And so I'm jumping the gun on so many different points I'm bringing up here, but it's just, so you want to establish what levels of communication you're comfortable with as early on in the relationship or the dating phase, so you're both on the same page with your expectations. So that involves how often you text, how often you call someone, video call someone, maybe you prefer voice messaging, how often you prefer to meet in person, and it being a discussion. You're not saying this is how it's going to be and it's my way or the highway. You're saying this is what I would appreciate, what would you appreciate, and then come to an agreement together. And everything just goes so much more smoothly. If you don't live in the exact same location as each other, it's also really important to schedule a time, the soonest possible time, to see each other in person. The longer it takes with long distance, no matter how far, the more conflict it can cause. So just meet each other in person as soon as possible and just get that part out of the way. Make sure you're with the right person, and then move forward. My brother, who's on the call right now, there was a phrase we came up with that was, don't be fluffing around, cut through the fluff and get straight to the juice. So we say that to each other sometimes. And that's what we're referring to. Have those tough conversations up front and get to the juice. So then it's just easier moving forward after that. So this whole rule was rule number 1, which is respond within 24 hours as the general rule of thumb. And the rest was kind of little nuggets in between. Okay, so rule number 2. Wait, before I go to rule number 2, does anyone have any questions about any of this stuff that we've talked about? Okay. So rule 2 is don't settle. So a lot of people settle just for a lot of reasons. You want a high quality person and someone who's you're attracted to. So I've helped a lot of people that are with attractive people but low quality people, or a high quality person that they're really not attracted to, or they just have this one really good thing about them but they're not attracted to them, and they're just like, why am I not happy? Or they're just confused about relationships, and they make all sorts of generalizations, or say all women are like this or all men are like this. And just don't settle. Really, it is very possible for you to find a high quality person that you're also attracted to. This is not an impossible dream that's unachievable. It's very achievable. Just keep your bar there and go for to shoot for it. Don't be scared to shoot for it. So that involves knowing what you want, getting so specific with what you want, writing it down, all the different things you can think of that you want in a partner, put it down. And just if I want a white Tesla, I start seeing white Tesla cars everywhere. That's my brain filtering my environment to show me what I want, and that's helping, and it's working in my favor. And then because I'm so specific with what I'm looking for, it actually really helps when I find that diamond that walks past, that 9 out of 10, that 10 out of 10, I can go all in. People sometimes, stumble, or they don't go all in and they lose that amazing person. And so you got to know when you got to go all in, and you have to push through a lot of uncertainty. You got to make big moves, you got to take big leaps, and you can't do that if you're not sure with what you're looking for. So get as specific as possible with what you're looking for. So if you see it walk past you one day, or I don't know, be somewhere, you can go all in and just go for it. Another thing within this don't settle rule that's good to know is the law of proximity. So, they've done a bunch of studies, and it's really easy for us to fall for people that we are in contact with frequently. So, people, if you're in school, someone from your school or your class, someone in your university, someone in your workplace, someone at your gym, anywhere that you frequently go, that's really easy to see someone. that's the law of proximity working for you. And they did a bunch of studies, and just for you guys to be able to visualize it, you're more likely to fall for someone that's within, like on a college campus, the number of buildings away. So the closer the number of buildings away, the closer the number of floors away, and the closer the number of doors away is how likely you are to fall for someone. So the closer they are, the more easy it is to bump into them, just effortlessly have a conversation with them, the more likely we are to fall for them. And so just knowing what we've learned so far, proximity doesn't equal quality. So I want that to sink in, because a lot of people can easily fall into relationships and be like, I was just living my life and now I have a partner and that's great. And I don't know, they might just think relationships are just like that. Or I don't know, generalizations about gender again, that women are like this, men are like this. But it might just be you're with a low quality person and you just fell into that relationship because of the law of proximity. So just realize that proximity doesn't equal quality. And we're really shooting for quality here, quality and the attraction, like all of it. So if maybe you somehow there's someone that is actually high quality, but they're long distance. Long distance can definitely work. It's harder for sure. The law of proximity is working against you, but you're getting quality. And if they're really great, and you make it work and you try and close the gap as quickly as possible, that's the person you're spending the rest of your life with. And they're going to be living with you, after marriage. It's just so that proximity problem goes away because you'll be living together. But the rest of your life is much more set. So whatever you need to do to get that quality, go for it. You might get really lucky and your proximity has the quality too. But, if maybe there's some distance involved, maybe that's worth it if they're super great and you know it because you've written down what you're looking for and, you've tested it out in different ways. So keep that in mind. The other one is the law of similarity. The more similar you are with someone, the more likely science has showed that you're going to have a happy, lasting relationship. And, there's pushback against this one because they're like, oh, I don't want like a mirror to myself. I want it to be exciting. I want it to be fun. I want to grow. I want someone to be like, good at things that I'm not good at. And, we can make all of these arguments. But what they found is, no matter how similar two people are, they're not going to be exactly the same. So you're going to have differences no matter how hard you try. But the more similar you are, especially with important things, the less likely you are to argue, which means because you already get each other, you're already on the same page, and you have more time to have fun together and have positive experiences. So that is really crucial for a healthy relationship, to have a lot of positive interactions. So the magic ratio for that is actually 1 to 5. So for every one negative interaction, you want to have 5 positive ones for a healthy balance. So that's how the law of similarity helps with creating a healthy positive ratio for you, because there's just less arguing. Also, with the first rule that I said, responding within 24 hours, if you don't talk, if you get in an argument and you don't talk to your partner for 3 days, that's 3 days worth of negative interactions that have built up that you need 5 times the positive interactions to come back from, which is a lot. It's a big deal to have negative interactions build up. That's why the shorter you can make the negative interactions and the less intensity you can make them, you're really, really helping your ratio for a healthy relationship. And then so we're still on the don't settle rule, guys. So the other thing I wanted to say about this is you also don't have to be perfect to be in a relationship. Someone's going to be with you through the hard stuff. Don't miss a 10 out of 10 because you feel like you're not ready. Go for it. And have the hard conversations at the beginning. Get very direct in the dating phase. Like, are you willing to move? Or have the whole moving conversation if you don't live in the same place. Do you want kids? In how many months or years do you ideally want to get married or have kids? Or maybe you don't want kids and you want to straight up ask them if they also don't want kids or if that's a deal breaker. So yeah, just again, cut through the fluff, straight to the juice. You don't want to break up with someone 6 months in, asking them these tough questions later and being really hurt and having all of these, experiences with them. And it's just much more heartbreaking, and it takes you longer to get over them and then get back into the game and find someone better. So just ask all these hard questions at the beginning. Okay. Rule number 3. On this one, I just want to say also, like, if you're using dating apps, like your profile on dating apps are like your fishing net. You want your fishing net to be the best it can be to attract the fish that you're looking for. So if you know exactly what it is that you're looking for and you've written it down, you can really tailor your kind of dating profile to attract exactly what you're looking for. For some people, I talk to them and they're like, I'm really serious. I want to find someone. I want to get married in the next year or two. I want kids. I want to start a family. I just don't know how to do that. Or like, why am I not seeing that? That's a totally fair concern and feeling to have. And then, I see some of their dating profiles, and, their dating profile is saying that they want a casual thing and also looking for something serious. And I don't know if their pictures or the comments they put up there is not really showing what they're looking for. Like, I even encourage people to write on their dating profiles, I'm looking for marriage in the next 2 years. And that's okay if it turns women away or guys away that are not looking for that too, but it will attract the people that want the same thing as you. And I know it's super scary to write that or, highlight these things that are so near and dear and vulnerable to you. But those are the things that's going to attract someone, and get rid of all the other people you want. So you want to have your fishing nets or your dating profiles or even the initial conversations you have with people to be super specific with the really important things that you're looking for, so you can quickly get through to finding the one, and not messing around with people that are just going to waste your time and take away your emotions. So the rule of, before I go to rule 3, any comments about this one? Any stories, anything anyone wants to share? Okay. All right. If you do, feel free to step in. I don't want to hold anyone back from saying anything. Okay, awesome. So rule 3, knowledge and expertise from the right people are really, really helpful. Usually, I say again, we don't get taught this stuff in school, so we're all kind of flying blind here. And usually we may go to our friends, we learn a lot from movies, TV shows, maybe our parents, and maybe they didn't have the best relationships either. Our friends, a lot of them are single. You really want advice from someone that you trust, that maybe has an amazing happily married relationship for a long time, or as long as you can get from someone around you, or really people that have are specialized in studying these things. Honestly, the only one I would recommend from the ones I've heard in psychology are John Gottman. I've said that before. He's got one book out there he's got a bunch of good books, but the main book that's really good to know is The 7 Principles of a Successful Marriage or something. My husband and I read that before we got married, and it's really good for having learning a lot of useful skills. I am a resource you guys have. If you need it, you can always reach out to me. But you want to have build a village of people around you that can give you good advice at the right time, because sometimes, honestly, with relationships, it is millimeters from making the right or wrong decision that can really change the trajectory of your life. And I've just seen that over and over again. And people, I know, at least from the people that reach out to me and they get the right information at the right time, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful, because it really, or they don't even realize how close they are to losing something, and then we talk about it, and they realize, and they're like, oh crap, and then they quickly correct. And it's just please have a good knowledgeable person or a knowledgeable place that can give you good advice. And also just realize it's going to take a lot of action in the right direction, to be able to find an amazing high quality person that you're attracted to. So that means a lot of assessing people at the beginning and asking these hard questions so you can sift through them very quickly. I read the other day that on average on these dating apps, I assume it's the free ones, I'm not sure, but it takes about 3,963 swipes to get into a relationship. And that's 6 hours a week for 8 months of doing that consistently to get into a relationship. And the study was looking at 1,000 people that got into a relationship from dating apps. So these were just the successful ones. These weren't even the people that didn't get into a relationship. And this doesn't even mean marriage. So, maybe someone that goes on a dating app and, I don't know, swipes 100 people, maybe gets 40 matches back where they swipe you back. And then, you send 40 messages to these people, only 10 of them respond. Only 3 of them get to the point of wanting to go on a date with you. 2 of them stand you up. 1 of them shows up, and that one was a dud. A lot of people don't know. They might think they might internalize it and say it's their fault, or they might be like, oh, dating apps suck, which I agree. I'm trying to create something better. But if that's one of the avenues you're using, you just got to realize that's kind of the game that we're all playing in. And it's good to know that up front. It's not you if you swipe 100 and you get 1 date. That's very normal. So let's adjust everybody's expectations that a lot of actions are going to be taken into the direction to know it. That's why I'm saying, if you guys improve your dating profile with what people can see, maybe that can really increase the odds of more higher quality people coming your way if you're sharing a lot of the same core things that you're looking for and just cutting through the fluff as quickly as possible. You don't want something generic. You want something as specific to catch the fish that you're looking for. So the creator, they just constantly be thinking about how can I improve everything I'm doing to attract the person I want. Where does the people I want hang out? Like even maybe like that, like, you know, maybe someone invites you to a party and you're like, oh, I don't want to go. But then you remember like, oh my gosh, this is probably where like the person I'm looking for might hang out. They might be right there. And you're like, no, I will go to that party and just keep my eyes open, or, you know, whatever it is. Maybe it's even, I don't know. It could be so many different places that are not on dating apps where you could go that you could find what you're looking for. But you just got to get so specific with what it is you're actually looking for. And if you do want a list of things to consider, just reach out to me and I'll copy paste the comprehensive list I've created in the last year for you guys to think about it for yourselves. So yeah, just realize that you need the right knowledge, you need the right expertise, and it's going to take a lot of action and a lot of like hard conversations at the beginning to make sure that you are finding a high quality person that, you know, you're attracted to as well. And for attraction, I generally try and encourage people, you want to be 8 out of 10 attracted to them or more on average. If they're close to 8 and they're lower, personality can really bring you know, someone higher. But you know, if you don't find someone attractive and they're like, I don't know, below a 5 to you, like, I don't know, you can probably easily find someone that you're more attracted to. And that goes both ways. Healthy relationships work when both people find each other attractive and they're both high quality. Those are the best combinations that you can go for. And there's 8 billion people out there, so it exists. That again was rule 2, don't settle. Okay, rule 4, bottling is bad. So, and be honest. And so a lot of these things, like even with rule number 1, you know, respond within, you know, stay in touch within 24 hours. You know, you could be like hurting up inside that the other person's not messaging you back, or you feel like you have to initiate again and you don't want to, or like whatever it is that you're bottling up inside, just communicate it, address it head on. And, you know, it takes, you know, it's a healthy sign when you can both have these conversations and figure it out together. And I want you guys to know that you can feel however you feel. No one can be like, don't feel like that. I don't care what adjective you use after feel. You can feel it. How you, you know, react to it with, you know, actions is a whole nother story. Like, you know, we can't be bashing on each other, for example. That's not an acceptable way to show feelings. But you can feel anything you feel, and then, you know, try and figure out together what kind of systems you need to put in place to be able to address it and move past it. And so again, it's you don't want it to come out in passive aggression, because you can say, oh, this doesn't bother me, I'm bigger than that, or I don't know, confuse yourself to think, oh, this person doesn't care about me or something like that. And that's really not what's going on. And yeah, that's where comments like, oh, I see where your priorities are, that can come from. And another story where passive aggression can come in was maybe you got, and this is a story. So someone went on a date, and you know, they dropped someone dropped one partner to the bus stop, and and you know, the bus came. The person got on the bus. They said goodbye, and the person told the person that got on the bus to text them when they got home so they could make sure they got home safe. Now, the person got off the bus, got home, and didn't text the other person that night. And then the next day, I texted them saying, why didn't you follow up to make sure I got home okay? And they were like, but I told you to text me. When they didn't even say that. They just apologized and said, oh, I'll definitely do that next time. I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, in that moment, you got to realize that was a passive aggressive comment that needed to be addressed in that moment. Like, we're not really talking about, you know, the main issue here. So you want to get straight to the point of the conversation. Like, even the person that feels like, you know, I shouldn't have to text again if I tell you to text me. So it's like that person should not bottle it in and just be honest in that moment that like, hey, like, you know, when you know, if I said, you know, text me when you get home and you felt uncomfortable about that, that's something that I would really appreciate you telling me that in the moment. Like, you know, if you feel that way, you can say, hey, I actually prefer you to text me when I get home to make sure I'm okay rather than me message you first. Because this person is just holding an expectation that you've got no idea about and then calling you out on it and making you feel bad. And it's, you know, this is just the first date. Like, you know, there's going to be this behavior of passive aggression is going to be very likely evident in many other areas of their interactions together. So you want to be able to really stop these habits early on when you notice it and talk about the main things. So don't bottle these feelings. You can definitely talk it out together and get on the same page. Did
Question:
you?
What
Yeah.
is the main thing here?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, passive aggression. Like I thought it was pretty out in the open. She said she wanted him to text her. Is that did I miss something?
Yeah, so in this situation, well, I'll just reveal the agenda. So it was the girl that was like, why didn't you follow up to make sure I was okay? And so, in this situation, the guy just apologized and said, I'm so sorry, like, I'll do that, which is a great response. But, obviously, like, he's a bit upset because he said, text me when you get home. And, that wasn't even acknowledged. He just pretty much got yelled at when that was not the terms he kind of agreed to. Like, he had no idea he was meant to do that. And maybe you can take the argument that he should have known that I should be there, what if something happened to me, all of that stuff. But really, people can't read our minds. So and then for example, it was the same person that later was like, oh, I see where your priorities are, when the person went to the gym and gave them prior warning that they're going to be less responsive while they're going to be there, and just giving them that foresight. So, this is definitely not a one-off thing. Usually when you hear passive aggressive comments, it's just how people seem to deal with uncomfortable situations, or how they make sense of the world. And, maybe it's very likely that this girl might generalize and be like, oh, guys suck. Why don't they care? Or things like that. And it's actually got nothing to do with guys sucking or guys caring. Guys are caring. They just didn't know the rules that you're operating under. And it doesn't help to just lash out at them. You want to be very specific and honest with what you're upset about, not making kind of like low blows at your partner. So on his end, I would say he let the passive aggressive stuff keep happening, and he kept bottling it up inside and saying sorry, and just trying to correct himself constantly. And this is just at the beginning, and so he was bottling, and it was upsetting him. And I don't know what she's assuming on her end, but this is an unhealthy situation that you want to be able to address up front. And it was really great. He was able to kind of speak up more, and stand his ground more, and just have a discussion about what expectations are moving forward. And if someone really can't do that, I don't know, that's not a sign of a high quality person. Don't worry too much about if you're being honest, you're sharing your feelings, you're trying to work together to figure some good systems out, and calling out passive aggressiveness when you see it, and being like, it's okay for you to be upset. But hitting me with like low blows like that and not addressing the situation is not helping the situation. I don't appreciate these comments. Let's talk about it head on, and figure it out together. And so that's the kind of standard you want to be setting for moving forward. These are like the bare minimum for like a high quality person. Like, they should be able to understand these things. And no one's going to be perfect, but if someone's just constantly making you feel terrible with these like low blow comments and attacking your character, and they're not changing, these are not signs of quality. So just be aware of what even quality is. So don't bottle in feel, or maybe you're the one that says these comments, and then you got to look at yourself and be like, okay, like, what is the main issue I'm upset about? For example, when she got home on the bus, you know her main thing was, I wanted to feel cared for. And I, like, she can say, for example, if I was the girl in that situation with the date, and I'm not bottling and I'm being honest, which is rule 4 right now, I would say, hey, I felt uncared for when I got home all night. I was looking at my phone waiting for you to text me to make sure I was okay, and like nothing terrible happened to me on my way home. And and you didn't, and that made me really sad. Can we please talk about it? Right? And then that's a totally acceptable way. So again, it's not a problem that I'm having these feelings of wanting him to have texted me. That's not the issue here. The issue is how I go about communicating that I'm upset. And then, the guy can be like, oh, thank you so much for sharing how you're feeling. I'm sorry you were feeling like that. It was not my intention. I really thought you would text me when you got home, and so I was just confused. I thought maybe you didn't think the date went well, and I didn't want to make you feel pressured to text you. I was really coming from a respectful angle, and then then you can talk it out and be like, okay, definitely, like, in the future, I will follow up if that's kind of what you would appreciate. Now I know that, and now you're talking about the real stuff, not like, I don't know, I see where your priorities are, or whatever it is, and just laughing it off and not addressing it. Those things are not okay. So just passive aggression is becoming way more common these days. And so we really got to notice it and address it head on. And remember, bottling is bad. Be honest. Anything on that before we touch on the last rule of thumb, rule number 5? Oh, I see your request. Also, welcome, Paulie. Great to see you here. And Jim, hello. Mr. Magic Man, is there anything you want to say?
I've got a question. So I think in my relationship, yeah, I think we've been a bit busy this last couple days, and I feel like the conversation's gotten a bit light. Like I think we're both kind of people that do our own thing, and we just send our messages and then come back a bit later and respond quickly to them. And it seems like these last few days, it's just been getting super light, and I'm just wondering, like, is that normal? Like, should you kind of be that's the expectation when you're both busy, or should you try and like fight really hard to like always have a good conversation, or like what is a good way to move on, or like I don't know, like make progress? I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah. So would you say you're responding to each other within 24 hours or longer?
No, it is within 24 hours.
It is within 24 hours. So far, I'd say just as a rule of thumb, it's still healthy. It's within 24 hours. If they're going through, anything big like any health concerns or they're moving countries or anything like crazy like that, I would definitely give them more slack. If there's someone that gets overwhelmed more easily, then they seem a little more sensitive, especially if they've got a lot on their plate. So those things can be considerations when we're thinking about the quality of the conversation within the 24 hours that we're chatting. I feel like if you are feeling like you need more, figure out what more is to you, or like what you need. Like before you communicate with them, I think it's good for you to think about kind of what do you need to feel comfortable in this relationship moving forward. And then once you have that, see if it, is it crossing the threshold of where it's upsetting you? So I don't want you to be bottling in something. You'd rather be honest than bottling, because we know bottling is bad from the last rule. But yeah, if you realize, hey, look, I realize what I want to be able to be happy moving forward in this relationship, and obviously get knowledge and expertise specifically with your like if you know someone, which I'm your sister, so I'm a good reference. So we can definitely talk about it in more detail if you feel like it is something is bothering you and you want something more. And then having that conversation with the person in the relationship and just coming from it from a point of view of a discussion. So again, you have every right to feel like a little sad or like a bit lonely or feeling a bit neglected or whatever the feeling is, if you're feeling that way, and saying, like maybe texting is hard and maybe voice messages are easier, or maybe texting is easier, but voice messaging is hard, or maybe if they give a shorter response but more frequently, that's something you appreciate, or you're like, no, it's okay, like even if you respond to me once a day but it's more detailed, that really means a lot to me. And so it would be really helpful to know what you actually would appreciate. So do you appreciate the quicker responses that are shorter, or like the longer responses that take longer? Maybe you only get one message or voice messages or whatever it is. Or maybe like you're more flexible, even if it's not every day. Like maybe you text every second day, but like you video chat once a week, or whatever it is you're looking for. Just get real specific with what you might appreciate, and then see if you can have that conversation with them, if it's getting to that point. But it's also important that the person values the relationship as much as you do. So there's a bunch of dynamics that play to. So it's definitely, the advice has to be more specific for the situation. But any other questions, or I don't know if I answered that well.
No, I think that was good. I think it's just these last couple of days I've kind of realized it, and now I'm just trying to sit with it and
Mhm.
see, yeah, actually, what do I want in a conversation, and like, what is my expectations? I think that's my next step, and then probably relay that. Yeah, I think that's a good move forward. Thanks.
Yeah, sure thing, sure thing. And when you're relaying it, just trying to frame it as a point of like discussion. Sometimes people they're like, I'm being honest, I'm not bottling it in. And then they like, I don't know, say it in a way that it sounds like they're breaking up with someone. And that's not their intention at all. And this is again like millimeters, like they don't know they're making that mistake, but like the other person has interpreted that they've just like, I don't know, like they're just not happy and they're checking out. Like, and then maybe and then sometimes people's defense mechanisms for like reacting to seeing signs of someone ending it with them, if they're like insecure, they might end it with you first and be like, well, I'm upset at you about this and I don't think this is going to work out. And then like the person's like, what, like what just happened? And this was like in a very short time frame, and it's just like you're really confused. And so yeah, just make sure like you have a conversation, and you want to avoid misunderstandings as much as possible. So the more directly you talk with them, ideally in person or video call or voice message, and then maybe as a last form text, because there's so much context missing, But yeah. So just be aware. I know you'll already take that into consideration, but yeah, just some people, like, honestly, I get, this is why I created today's topic, like relationship skills 101. I usually try and get people to, I don't know, talk with me how they would talk to someone about it, or show me the text they're going to send, because sometimes, like, some people really don't know what they're doing, and they it's just, just helpful if you are in that situation to have, someone who knows what they're doing, just look over and make sure you're on the right track. Anyone else want to say anything at all? Or Mr. Magic Man, if there was anything else you wanted to say before we go to the last rule? All right. Sounds good. Rule 5, love languages. And by that, I mean, understand people receive love differently to you very commonly, all the time, everybody around you. And so it's very common for when someone receives love different to you and doesn't have the reaction you expect them to have, or you don't have the reaction they expect you to have, misunderstandings can just come up all over the shop. And so when someone tries to not bottle it in and tell you, as humans, we automatically get defensive and we fight back, and we'll be like, well, I'm upset at you for doing this. And so it's really important to just take a step back when someone's giving you feedback and saying, hey, I feel sad that blah, blah, blah. This is something I would appreciate from you. Let's talk about it. Let's kind of address it and figure this out together. And, you don't immediately just realize your instinct is to immediately fight back and get upset and defend yourself. And this is something I am working on a lot too, because I'm also human. But we need to just remember that we make a lot of mistakes in relationships and everywhere else. And it's the main thing here is that we can show growth, because we need to get better at being partners for each other. So learning how to fight is really a valuable skill, because it also reduces the negative interactions in your magic ratio of 1 to 5. And how quickly, and you want to be able to grow and improve and be a better partner to who you're with as quickly as possible. And so some people might fall into the trap of saying, this is who I am, it is what it is. I don't know, you don't like who I am, and they're just like really internalizing the stuff, and that's not the point. The point is that people receive love in different ways. And we really have to understand how our partner receives love. And it's not going to make sense to us a bunch of the times, because it's different to how we receive love. And so and each person is different. So there's a blank slate with each new person that you're with, and you have to learn everything about them in different situations. What do they need? There was one of these spaces, we did one where I was saying how if someone really upsets me, like what I appreciate is like smack talk, like from my partner. And, that's not a common, easy thing to say to someone, or that makes sense. Maybe someone else doesn't, my partner, my husband, he doesn't appreciate smack talk when, someone upsets him, and, that's different. And, he has, a long way to go to learn how to even smack talk. So it's like, or to even wrap his head around why it's like actually a good skill right now that I need, so whatever it is for you, just realize that it's not really personal if someone doesn't receive love the way you do. You really have to learn to give your partner what they want, and they have to learn how to give, show you love the way you want. And each person is different. And so that is a whole like lifelong skill that we work on learning together. Oh my gosh, Bijan, I see you. I'm going to see your request. Yay. Is there anything you wanted to say? Oh, we know.
Glad to listen.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you coming. Awesome. So I was going to jump into 2 quick Reddit questions together that kind of test some of these skills that we've been talking about. And you're welcome to answer them however you think is good. All right, let's jump in. So the first question on Reddit, so these are real people's questions that I've gotten from the last week. So it's a 29-year-old female and a 29-year-old male, and they're dating. And the title is Female Dating a Male Who Says He Hates Makeup. And so the background story on this one is, let me just quickly approve. I don't know why it's glitching for you, but hopefully it works. Give me a second. Okay. All right. So the background story on this one is, okay, let me read from the start. It's something that's been bothering me for a while, and to you guys, this might seem like it's a silly thing to be upset about, but to me, it wasn't a compliment. It felt like an attack at my appearance. We are getting ready to go for a date, so I naturally was excited because because we hadn't been on one for a while. So I wanted to put a dress on, do my hair, and put on some makeup. And the first thing he said when I walked in the door was, "You're wearing too much makeup, and I like you better without." That broke me. I felt self conscious, like I did all this work to feel pretty and present myself for him. And I felt like he found me unattractive. And then we got into a fight after. I clearly felt insulted and just angrily wiped off my makeup. I rarely ever wear makeup, and when I do, it's just some foundation, mascara, eyeliner, and eyeshadow. I don't put on a full face, and if I feel good, why does it matter if the guy doesn't like it? Why can't, as a woman, why can't we just do something that makes us feel good? This is a question mostly for guys. Why do guys say this? Do you honestly think the girl will feel happy hearing this? So we're touching on some interesting points here. What initial reactions do we have with this one?
Well, I mean, I think there's like two sides to this, right? Where the first side is the way that the guy expresses how he feels really matters, right? Because you can say that you like how she looks in a way that makes her feel bad, and you can say something about how you don't like how she looks that actually doesn't make her feel bad. So separately from whatever you really feel, it's like the way that you talk about it and bring it up is really, really important to show that you care about that person and you're not just judging them based on how they look directly. So that's the first direction. The second direction, I think, and I mean, that happens by itself. Like, you, as a guy, I don't think you have to like get in your head and like think too hard about it. If you just try to really feel and empathize with how she might feel about her appearance and understanding how important the way a woman looks is. And it's not really, as a guy, it doesn't matter as much. Just in general, I'm sure there's other dudes that care a lot about it, but sometimes I've noticed it's hard to have empathy for someone if you don't have exactly the same values that they have. And so a lot of times the guys that don't care as much about appearance might say things more hurtful than they need to. So putting yourself in a position where you're really aware of how important appearance is to a woman and you're aware of how much it matters to her will naturally make you feel, you know, like being more gentle and more delicate when you bring up things about how she looks.
Yeah, it's all the good stuff. And if I had to put it in the rules that we kind of brought up today, one, it touches on bottling is bad. So he had a strong negative, reaction to when she walked through the door. And, maybe he could have done a decent job at hiding it, bottling it, throughout the night. But maybe this is something that would have bothered him all night. And so, he didn't bottle it. He communicated it, which is great. He did rule 4, but as Bijan said, how you communicate it is super important. So the way he communicated it made her feel upset. So first, he's allowed to feel however he feels, just like she's allowed to feel however she feels. There's nothing wrong with the feelings here. But how you communicate it can have consequences. So it made how he communicated it made her quite upset. And so from there, you got to figure out the other thing that Bijan touched on, which was the love languages one, which was rule 5. So there's different, like, people receive love in different ways. And so it seems like for the girl, when she, once in a while puts on makeup, she really needs to feel like, it seems like that's a moment that she really needs to feel loved. And it's like they need to figure out what she needs in that situation, and what he is looking for. Like, maybe he just wanted to communicate his feelings, but maybe he wanted her to keep the makeup on or something. Maybe she went and took it off. But it's like, we need to figure out what she actually needs in this moment to feel loved. And is there anything, it seems like he was just communicating it, but it seems like for the girl it was a much bigger deal. Again, that's something Bijan was saying. So you really have to learn what your partner needs to feel loved, on both sides. And then and it's not easy. Like, for example, in some situations, you're not going to feel like you're being honest if they're like, "Hey, I need you to feel like you telling me I look beautiful," I see Paulie, I see Bijan. Paulie, what have you got?
Sorry, did you welcome me? I couldn't hear.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
welcome, yeah.
Yeah,
All
thanks
good.
for having me. Yeah, no, this is an interesting topic. I wasn't planning on talking, but this is really interesting
Mhm.
because I am one of those guys that I prefer a woman who has less makeup. I like a natural looking woman, and I think one of the big differences a lot of people touch on between men and women is how we tend to approach things. Like, women seem to approach things from a more emotional, and men can tend to maybe focus more on the logic of things. And it's an interesting way how a man can say something like that and suggest that she looks more beautiful the way she is, and for the woman to in turn interpret that as an insult. It's kind of it's very difficult as a man to really wrap our heads around that, because we're trying to approach them and say, no, you actually are beautiful as you are. By changing yourself, you're making yourself not what I appreciate and I love. So
Hmm.
I don't even know what question to ask about, like, how to
Hmm.
get past that. It's I know as a guy it can be a little difficult. And I don't know. I guess I'd love to hear what you think, how a person like me should approach that.
Yeah, I love that you came up. I love that we're talking about it because this is one example of how two people can have different opinions on something, and it's a simple thing, and you can have a fight about it, and you can ruin your entire date night. And so that's why I really like this one. So, for example, you would have the conversation. So neither of you are bottling it in. He would have said it however he said it. So even if you communicate it poorly and it upsets the other person, it's usually better to talk about it than not talk about it. So I think he did the right thing to say something instead of hiding it. And, she got upset, which is totally fair. So from there, he would say, I find you really beautiful when you don't wear makeup. And she would be like, well, I want to feel pretty when I do wear makeup, because that's, I don't know, whatever her argument is. And so then they would figure out, how do they move forward? How do we move forward from this? We both feel differently. And so, for example, one solution where both people can feel respected and loved could be when she's not wearing makeup, he really like makes her feel like super beautiful and like she's amazing, which is most of the time she's not wearing makeup. And so that would be a great moment for him to highlight how beautiful she is. And maybe she's like, I understand you feel differently about makeup, but when I come out, like, putting all this effort in to look beautiful for you, or like for myself, or like, this is what I think beauty is, or whatever. Like, she was just putting effort in. Like, she was actually like trying to make him happy, but it wasn't working. But, if for example, she doesn't want to compromise on the makeup thing, maybe she's like, I really need you to just give me a hug when you've seen I put effort into my appearance, or, say something nice, Like maybe if you can't say something about my makeup, like say something about my dress, say, wow, that's a really beautiful dress, or you look stunning, or just what are you able to do to make me feel loved in that moment? I really need to feel loved in that moment. And then that's like, for example, that would be a way to talk about it where we're understanding both people in this situation, and we're learning how to show love in a way our partner appreciates, which is not easy to do. Bijan, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Sure. This actually reminds me of this new season of Love is Blind. I don't know
Oh no,
if
it's not
anyone
working.
has been
I think it's
watching it.
glitching.
Hello, testing.
I can hear him.
I'm gonna try again. Let me mute and unmute. Testing 1, 2, 3.
I can hear you, Bijan.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that there's a pretty popular TV show called Love is Blind that has a new season, and on this new season of the show, this exact thing happens where two people make a match, and when they see each other for the first time, the guy is really silent and seems like not very excited, and he seems a little bit distant and unreactive for like a few days. And the fiance is really frustrated with him and trying to work with him, but can't really understand what's going on. And then a few days later, he reveals that he really didn't like it when she wore makeup. But the problem here was, because he didn't say anything about it and it just affected his body language and the way he communicated, it really like was a negative experience for her, and she ended up breaking off the relationship. And I actually really agree with that, because he can't handle conflict. If there's a guy that something happens like, oh, I don't like it when she wears makeup, and he doesn't know how to bring it up and he doesn't know how to address his feelings, then that's like the worst case scenario. As a guy, you need to be able to, journal or something to understand what you're feeling and then communicate that with your partner, even if it's not like amazing things. Like, that's step one is, oh, if I don't like the way she looks when she wears makeup, I got to talk to her about it and like work as a team to get through this. And he wasn't doing that, and it made him look really unreliable as a partner. So like, that's the first step, right? And then the second step is, once you've identified, oh,
bottling
this, sorry, I'll stop.
No, go ahead. Second step.
The second step is, once you identified in your like how you're feeling, right? Listen to your body, listen to, what's going on. Then I think when two people are, let's say, emotionally vulnerable with each other and intimate with each other, the words that you say can be important, but as long as you're being like careful about the words that you use, in general, the most important thing is how you make the person feel, right? So you could say like boppity boopity upside down fandango and do a little dance, and that could make your partner really happy or really sad, depending on the context and the way you say it and your body language. And I think a lot of the times that's another thing that people don't think that much about. They're like, oh, I feel this way, so I'm just going to tell them exactly how I feel without thinking about how I convey it. and it can come across badly. And a lot of the time, people are good at what they spend a lot of their time doing, and a lot of guys don't really spend a lot of time expressing themselves and talking about their feelings. And so the one time that they do, it's usually not going to come off very well. So I don't know, as a guy, I feel like that's a skill that's really important to work on, right? Because there's going to be lots of scenarios, just like, oh, I don't like it when she wears makeup. That's going to come up in your life, not just with your partner, but maybe with your kids or maybe with your parents. And you have to be able to express that and navigate that emotional turbulence. And that's part of being like a well-integrated person. So I don't know, like going to therapy or something like that. It's like a skill you have to build.
Yes, agree fully with really practicing not bottling and being honest. So I'm so glad that you shared everything you're sharing about that. I'm sure with that situation with the engagement being broken off and stuff, that like you were saying, like it wasn't a one-off thing where it's just he didn't communicate about that one thing. This, he just wasn't doing it across the board, and this is a skill that's super important in so many different ways. So yeah, like as in if someone's looking from the outside in thinking, oh, like they just broke up over like a makeup thing, that seems crazy. That's not the whole picture. We don't know the whole picture. It goes way deeper than that. So I think this is like a perfect scenario for us to be talking about, because these are kind of the fundamentals. This is just relationship skills 101. When you feel a certain way, you want to be able to communicate that with your partner and be able to resolve it and work together over it. It's not like a huge reaction that they're not going to talk to you for a week. Like that's not the dynamic. That's not a healthy dynamic we're at. We're trying to be able to communicate how we feel, not have a massive reaction, talk about it, figure out, understand other people are different, and figure out a way where we can still make the other person feel loved and the other person can still make us feel loved. And it's a real muscle we're going to build on. And for a lot of people, it's a very small muscle. And so each rep is doing a lot of work. One last Reddit scenario we can go through. So it's a 42-year-old female and a 44-year-old male. And the title is, I recently started dating a 44-year-old male and I'm hella confused. I'm a recently turned 42-year-old woman and I started seeing someone new who is 44. At the beginning, there was great communication. We did video chats. We met for a date. We agreed it both went well and to go for a second. This is where issues started. We seemed to be communicating okay at the beginning of last week, and then he told me that his car broke down and he needed to get it fixed. He apologized and asked me to move our date, which we did. The time comes around for our next date, which was meant to be on Thursday of this week. I had not heard from him much, so I asked if we were still on. He said that he forgot to tell me that his kid, which he had shared custody, was back in town and wanted to see him. Of course, I understood, but I told him I feel that there are several barriers stopping us from getting to know each other better. He replied that he had a lot of personal stuff going on and apologized for the lack of contact. He asked to rebook our date, and I said, let's do it in 2 weeks after your vacation with your kids. He was very thankful and felt this was helpful. The issue is, it's now been 4 days since he tried to contact me. I noticed yesterday that he liked one of my posts and created posts, but has not texted me. Is he playing games with me? Would you wait 2 weeks to hear from your guy? Man, I'm confused, lol. So what do we think with this one, with any of the rules that we've kind of gone over to help us navigate? What do we think? Armand, you got something?
Yeah, I think we should really just hit him with his where it hurts. This guy really, it seems like he loves his children, and we should just kidnap them, hold them hostage until he answers us. That's my 2 cents.
There we go. We got one option that we can go behind. Anyone else?
Totally agree. That sounds great.
We've got 2 votes.
He knows the love language. GG.
GG. We're kidnapping kids these days now. Okay.
But for love.
But for love, obviously. I appreciate that, you guys. All right, who else wants to give their opinions? All opinions are valid and welcome to be talked about.
Well, I guess I'll be serious. So from my perspective, I think there's 2 main things that need to be addressed. The first is potential differences in understanding. So she's made some assumptions about him, about what he hears when she says, we'll see each other in 2 weeks. And he may not think that she means, let's keep talking until then. Now, it might be obvious to her that she means that, but she's assuming that that's what he's getting, and it might not be. So from that assumption she's making, a lot of potential negative emotional things are coming out of it. where she feels like he doesn't care about her, or why isn't he texting me more? And so like step one has to be like, this is my assumption when I talked to you about this earlier, and just being like really straightforward, and not making any assumptions about how he feels based on his behavior. Like that's step one, and make sure that he really understands what she meant. And then we can read into, oh, how is he feeling, this, that, and the other thing. But you got to talk about what he got first, because you can't. You'll start to like assassinate his character and be like, oh, if he wanted to, he would. And like you can say a lot of negative things about someone's behavior when they may not have even really gotten your message right. So step one is to check.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Everything Bijan said. And Mazda, I'm going to call you out. What do we call this? What do we call it? Step one. Do you remember?
Sorry. What was it?
I was going to
Come
say.
through the fluff. Come through the fluff.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. But something else about assumptions. Where are we, Mazda?
Yeah. Dude, we're in Assumption Alley, dude. We're in the dark. There's no light. We don't know where we are. We're confused. We're lost. We're scared. And then we got to get out of it. So we got to ask the questions directly. Ask the hard questions that we're scared about. And then we see the light. And then we can go towards truth and better understanding. Then you are in freedom. You are out of Assumption Alley.
Amazing. That was some really good information, Mr. Magic Man. I appreciate it. So that's what we talk on a lot of the spaces. We talk about Assumption Alley, and so a lot of people get stuck in Assumption Alley, especially in the dating phase, where usually people feel scared to be honest and upfront and have these tough conversations. And so I agree with everything Bijan said. Was there a step 2 to your plan, or this is the main step?
I mean, if she communicates with him more and she is certain that he understands that she expects him to keep in touch, and he responds with, oh, that's not what I thought you meant, and something like, I don't know, like, I still don't know you very well. I would really prefer for us to sort of like speak a little less, for us to just both focus on my lives, and like I'm not at that serious level. That's one option, right? And that would explain it. Or second, it could be like, oh, thank you so much for letting me know, and like it's really important for me to communicate and like make sure the people around me are taken care of, and you're someone that's potentially really important to me, so moving forward. And then he would probably like say like, I might be busy, this and that, but I am definitely gonna like message you when I have time. You can expect at least like a good morning or something. And then like, not apologize because there was a miscommunication, but like leading from his action, showing that he got the message. That's like the different directions that can go. It's complicated because I feel like she could do a better job with him about how she feels about the relationship too. It seems like, honestly, this is challenging for me. I don't know if it's kind of like a hot take or not, but it seems like a lot of the times the dynamic in the relationship has to sort of be at least a joint effort, but more often like, I don't know, the guy asks the girl out on a date and stuff like that, and the guy makes the plan for the stuff. And there's an expectation. I don't know if it's like, maybe it's like more traditional, and maybe not all relationships are like that, but I think a lot of women, maybe like in their like subconscious or something, like sort of expect that to happen. I know, so as a guy, like understand that and like act on that, assuming that that's the expectation, right? If you don't lead a relationship with a dynamic that you want it to go, you're communicating that you're not interested in her, right? So it's up to you. Although it's more respectful to just say, after going on a date, it went pretty well, but I'm honestly not feeling that much. I'd be willing to meet you again, but I don't know how you'd say it. Maybe you'd be like, maybe it's best if we just don't go on the next date or move on or something. But like this like weird Assumption Alley limbo state where you're not really messaging someone, I think is actually kind of low-key disrespectful. Like you got to take care of, like there's this person who's now involved with you emotionally. You have to make sure that you take care of that situation. You can't just like forget about it. It's important. So that's all.
Yeah, and these are different scenarios that it could definitely go under. And don't kind of think you're not worth it, or I don't know, if someone's like, oh, sorry, yeah, this is just too much for me right now, like I don't know, or they're kind of like invalidating your feelings and saying, like this is just a lot for me, like you're wanting a lot from me right now and I can't give you that. And sorry, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I just need to work on, just be there for my kids and stuff like that, and kind of blowing you off. Like, that's not respectful. Like, be able to realize that that's not respectful. That's not, someone can love their kid and say, I want to spend time with them, and find a way to make time for you, or communicate in a way that you can still feel loved moving forward, to see if there's still something there between you. So this whole limbo thing of not addressing it is, not, like Bijan said, not a respectful thing. And please realize that. And on your end as a girl, if you're the girl in this situation, she took the time to write this out on Reddit, which is great to get feedback, but you're probably not going to get the best expertise feedback on Reddit from random people. But she could have also just communicated this to him directly. In healthy relationships, like anything, like you would come to talk to me about, if, for example, you wanted relationship advice, you would say this stuff to them and be able to have that tough conversation and have them be supportive and talk about it, and just really get on the same page and get out of Assumption Alley. So, she, in the title of this one, it says, we've recently started dating and I'm hella confused. If you're confused, talk to the source of what's causing the confusion and clear it up. And I feel like in a lot of other maybe relationships in our life, we're much more direct, but something with dating just makes us like, I don't know, don't want to make the wrong move, or like we don't want to come across needy, or like, I don't know, cool, I don't know, whatever we're thinking, or maybe we just don't prioritize it highly enough. Whatever it is, you want to know what's going on, address it directly, be honest, don't bottle it in. And as the girl too, like as a guy, like, I don't know, just know that maybe there's a stereotype that you initiate or you make the moves, but also as the girl, if someone's not meeting your standards or you're wanting more, you have to be able to communicate that. You can't expect someone to just get it without you having communicated that this is what you expect from them. So definitely keep that in mind. Just like the girl from the bus, where he said, text me when you get home, and she didn't text him when she got home, and then the next day she's like, why didn't you check to make sure I was okay? Like, that was an assumption she had made without even telling him that this is something she expected, and he's already failed on something that she never communicated, which is unfair. So you want to definitely communicate these things, get out of the games, get out of the confusion, be super direct, be like, I'm serious about you, like, if that's where you're at, and just figure out a plan together. This stuff isn't rocket science to be able to figure out how to stay in touch while you have your like kid over. Like, maybe all they want is like a good morning text, like Bijan said, and that's like doable. And if you're a forgetful person, you can put an alarm for yourself, like a reminder on your phone to send that text, or whatever you need to do to be able to manage like having a person in your life that you love, and also being loving to your kids. It's totally doable, but you have to kind of take it seriously and put in the effort, and both of you having these tough conversations. So thank you guys. Was there any final words anyone wanted to say before we wrap up for today?
I wanted to mention one more thing, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in addressing things at the root and not like doing patch up jobs downstream, right? So like an example is like someone who does bad communication puts a lot of reminders in their calendar, but never addresses the reason why they're bad at communicating, for example. I think that one of the things that gets in the way of communication and dating, and I mean, I'm sure it depends on the person, but what I've seen has been that people don't have a solid self identity and a solid self-esteem that comes from internally. And because of that, they become really focused on the outcomes of the things in their life. So for example, if they are dating someone and the date, and like that means that they're a good person because of like something that's happening to them. And that's a very like external way of people that validate themselves, but it's actually really common. And I think that if you're someone who receives validation from like outcomes in your relationships, then you're going to be really focused on having good outcomes in your relationships, right? So you might overexert yourself, or you might violate some, important values just to make sure that, I don't know, that you keep dating someone, or like they don't break up with you. And I think like the root source of that kind of behavior, and that behavior will go from like someone trying really hard, and then on the weekend they totally fall off the planet, and you're like, what happened? And it's like they just got tired. And I think the source of that is they're focused more externally than internally, and so their guide is external. So one of the ways that can manifest itself is if a girl feels like every time she's upset, her partner tries harder, and every time she feels good, her partner stops trying, which I've heard from, friends and things like that, that a lot of them have told me that that's a feeling that they get. And I think it might come from, a guy's only going to do something feels like, an external source is pushing him to do it if he's not like self-motivated or self-driven. So that can that's the impression that I get from both of the or the Reddit posts, which is like these seem like guys that are just doing things to just get things to go, and they're not they don't have values internally that make them take action or have their relationships be a certain way. So the reason I bring it up is because I think and I can say I've had personal growth in the same area where instead of trying to fix the symptoms one at a time, if I focused more on my self-esteem, a lot of the things just resolve themselves on their own, and I could be a lot more vulnerable and a lot more direct and a lot less afraid of conflict just by focusing on improving my self-esteem. So that's probably what I would recommend to those guys in those Reddit questions.
Yeah, and that's an important piece of this puzzle too, because how we feel about ourselves, really, it's like a magnifying glass in a relationship. And so that's such a valuable input for everybody to take on board that, one piece of the puzzle is, the relationship, but the other piece of the puzzle is yourself and from what dynamics you're operating from. And, even knowing your self-worth, and that, for example, if someone is not making time for you, that is something that should be happening. As long as you're communicating directly and things like that, that's something you deserve. And if someone is, saying they'll do something, for example, you communicate, this is how I feel like I receive love from you, and they're like, yeah, they get it. They make you feel like they got it, and they do it a bit, and then they stop, or they're not reliable with it. That's not okay. And a lot of people excuse this behavior, or if you're doing it yourself, you could be doing that for a lot of reasons that are much more deep rooted than just the behavior that's lacking. Maybe you're just not feeling motivated by life, or just so many different things can be at play. That's really important to unpack. And I think if I had to summarize the core thing that's at play here, at least relationship wise, is with that last point of really understanding that other people feel receive love different to you, and really approaching it from a blank slate and having that internal drive. No one's making you love another person. You don't have to love someone else. And maybe other people are motivated by all sorts of things to be with you, or you are with other people. But the main healthy core internal thing that's going to motivate you to kind of be in a healthy relationship is you want your partner to feel loved. And so that's what's driving you. And if you see that your actions of not being consistent or whatever it is not making them feel loved, that is important. And it's same vice versa, just as much. And so it's really hard to each situation is different, but this is gets to that core place that both people have to equally be doing their very best with their actions to make the other person feel loved. And if they're not doing that, and they're motivated by other things, that is a core issue. Maybe they just don't prioritize it, or they don't value it, or whatever in their past is coming to effect here. But that's a very important aspect of it. And a lot of people settle with, okay, well, I don't know, and they make excuses for their partner too, or they make excuses for themselves. So yeah, nobody's making you change. Nobody's making you do anything. You really have to. The driving force here is you want to be in a relationship where you feel someone is putting in the work with their actions for you, and understanding how you really feel loved, and you are doing the same for them. And there's so many things that can trigger this to go wrong, internally or externally, or you just have awful, mother-in-laws or father-in-laws or sister-in-laws or whatever it is. Sometimes it's that sort of influence that's really ruining it, and you have to navigate around it. But yeah, it is complicated, and I love how we're talking about all the different elements at play. And yeah, usually they are deep-rooted things, and so we got to get to the heart of it as quickly as we can and just address it and figure it out and move on from there. Hopefully I addressed it the way it deserved to be addressed. Awesome. I see Omid's here too, my other brother. So happy to have you here. As the last time Omid was here with us in Michigan, we started this thing where we honor one person that's been here today with the title of MVFP, which was the most valuable floor member. And today I'm going to give it to Bijan. You've been awesome. You've shared so many amazing things with everyone. We heard your perspectives. We learned so much, and we think it's really, really valuable. So yeah, thank you so much for coming. And we'll do the same thing next week with a new topic. And if there's any topic that you guys would appreciate for me to be able to give you as much knowledge as I can on, feel free to message me. I'm more than happy to do any topic people want. Sometimes people request it and I deliver. So keep that in mind and have an amazing week. Wish you all the love lives of your dreams, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Very much. This is a great thing you're doing. Very happy about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.